Thanks for waking up with us.
I solemnly pledge to consecrate my life to the service of humanity.
I will give my teachers the respect and gratitude that is their due.
I will practice my profession with conscience and dignity.
The health of my patient will be my first consideration.
I will respect the secrets that are confided in me, even after the patient has died.
I will maintain by all the means in my power
The honor and the noble traditions of the medical profession.
My colleagues will be my sisters and my brothers.
I will not permit considerations of age, disease, or disability.
Creed, ethnic origin, gender, nationality,
Social standing, or any other factor.
to intervene between my duty
and my patient.
I will maintain the utmost respect for human life.
I make these promises solemnly,
I make these promises solemnly,
freely,
freely,
and upon my
my
honor.
And to complete the afternoon, I would ask all of the graduates to stand, and any physicians or dentists who wish to reaffirm the oath. Since the time of Hippocrates over 2,000 years ago, medical practitioners have taken an oath to uphold the principles of the vocation to which they dedicate themselves. In setting forth these principles, the oath serves both as a contract with the community and as an affirmation of the deep commitment to the profession.
So considering that I have been sick recently, so when I say cold, flu, coronavirus, people are like, oh my God, you got the coronavirus, you need to go get tested for it to make sure if you have it or don't have it. And since, you don't know, and it's going around, and it's most likely that you do have the novel coronavirus that's going around, you need to get your vaccine. Because if you don't get vaccinated, then you're going to infect everybody else. But if everybody else gets vaccinated and the vaccine is going to vaccinate a person from what we call this novel coronavirus, then me getting vaccinated has nothing to do with you. If everybody else gets vaccinated and I don't, or a small group of people do not get vaccinated, then how does that affect you if the vaccine actually works? We're choosing not to get vaccinated. It's the argument that people will make. Oh, you're a danger, you're a threat to society because you don't want to get vaccinated. So you're putting other people at risk. Again, how are those who are not getting vaccinated putting others at risk who do get vaccinated if the vaccine actually does what it's supposed to do? That's just common sense. Common sense. We choose not to get vaccinated because we choose not to get vaccinated, not because we're stupid. And even if we were stupid, we still choose not to get vaccinated. So there are many reasons why I'm not going to get vaccinated, not going to get a flu shot. Those days have long and gone. But with everything that's going on right now, the Lord put something in my spirit, and I just want to share with you. So, if you have the defense of God, you go out and bring in demons behind your defense walls so you can fight against them better, so that the defense can recognize the enemy better by having them in the city. Do you allow demons into the defense city so they can make babies with the inhabitants of the city, bringing forth abominable hybrids? Would you allow these abominable hybrids into the sacred Holy of Holies within the defense city? Point. This is exactly what you do when you get vaccines. Yet you claim to be a Christian, a follower of Christ. Your thinking is to let foreigners into your city, which we are using the city as a play on words, as a analogy for your body, so they can be familiar with these enemies. Your body has a defense system that can identify foreign invaders before they even get into your body. If they do breach the wall, then your body has security measures in place. To purposely allow the enemy to be injected within you under the thinking that it will cause the body to produce antibodies is one of the most insane things I've ever heard in my life. It's like saying, we are going to allow the enemy to bring a dirty bomb into the city so we can learn more about it. It's supposed to be a period, not a question mark. But you know how autocorrect does. So the context of what the Lord was showing me to share with you all is that you wouldn't allow yourself to be injected with a demon or devil or unclean spirit. Would you? No, I wouldn't do that. Because that sounds too dramatic. Come on, man. Inject yourself and be injected with a demon. But there's some deeper wisdom to that we're going to get to in a minute. 99.9% of the doctors are your enemy. History has proven this. If they weren't your enemy, then they wouldn't be doing what they are doing. Even these doctors that are coming out and they are telling what's going on, they're still a part of that medical profession, that medical field. You know, it comes a point in time where you have to stand up for what you truly believe in, no matter where you work, no matter where you're at, no matter how you were raised up and how God led you to him. We all go through that in our lives. We all go through that in our walks in the faith of Christ. And he purposely puts us in those situations to see what we're going to do. If you notice throughout your life, and especially as a believer, you ever had a test by the Lord and you didn't do too well? But then if you look back at all the times before that, God was allowing you to go through mini tests, pop quizzes, to prepare you for this bigger test. So it's not necessarily always about, failing a test or failing a quiz or whatever. It's what do you do after that? Okay, you failed this test. You didn't do too well on this test. Are you going to, man, to hell with this. I'm done. Or are you going to go study more? Let me go study more. Let me be better prepared. .9% of these doctors are your enemy. History has proven this. So why would you allow people that hate your skin color? Because I'm speaking to Facebook, I am primarily speaking to black people. So if you go on my Facebook page and you read stuff, you're like, well, dang. It's because Facebook is more so tailored to my audience on Facebook, which is black people. YouTube, I'm speaking to both black and white people. That's why in videos, I address both sides. Some of my videos are specifically to black people. Some of my videos are specifically to white people, what we call white people. But in each video, whether the person is black or white, they can get something out of it. So I want to make sure I clarify that. Why it's worded the way that it is. Excuse me. So why would you allow people that hate your skin color, let alone you as a person, inject you with the enemy? Don't say you wouldn't allow yourself to be injected with the devil. Now watch this. Yet you allow yourself to be injected by devils. Well, all doctors aren't bad. Well, if they are continually perpetrating and pushing this lie and pushing these vaccines on these people and all these different things, then guess what? You're being injected by devils. So if a devil is injecting you, then how is that any better than you actually being injected with the devil? Because you technically are being injected with the devil. Some of you just, you're not ready for that. You're not ready for that. You're not ready for that understanding. Because that statement there has thrown some of you off. When you are being injected with these things, you're already being injected with devils. Because there's something behind it. You see, we must realize that this physical realm is a manifestation of the spiritual world. So things that happen in the spiritual realm, they manifest themselves in different ways, in different forms, in different fashions in this physical world. Now, I mentioned this before. I mentioned it several times in regards to witchcraft. When you look at witchcraft, you see mix this with that, blase, blase, right? You see them doing all this stuff. You see them floating and everything. They got this new, witch movie out. That's a remake of the old one with the girls and everything. And some of you have seen the preview. But you see everything they're doing. Right? But it's not about that. It's not about that. What makes the spell of witchcraft so powerful is the binding of it. When it is bound to a person, when the spell is bound to a person. And how does a spell end up being bound to a person? Well, there are many ways. A person can have generational curses on them. And so that spell is bound to them because they are under that power. But in the context of what we are speaking about, a spell is bound to a person by them coming into agreement with the spell. The whole frog leg and all that stuff, yeah, that's, you know what I'm saying, that it is what it is. But the power of the spell, more so, that gives the person that's casting the spell more power is the binding of the spell to the person that is receiving that spell, receiving that curse. Rather they go in there and they say, a love potion or whatever it is. Or even if they don't know what's going on, and a witch or a warlock, they send a spell towards somebody. They send a spell to somebody, which they're sending demons. They're sending spirits. Whatever happens in the physical, let's say a spirit of fear is sent. And that person is fearing an unrighteous fear. by them being unrighteously fearful. There's torment in that. So now that demon, that devil, that adversary has power over that person's life in the form of a spell, because they have now bound that demon of fear has now bound itself to that person, because they have received that fear. It may not have been the demon manifested itself. It could have been something else that demon triggered within that person. And then they come into agreement with what's being said, and now they're bound to that. Now that demon, through that spell, has power over that person. Why? Because of the words. Because of the words at its core, and I mentioned this several times, at its core, witchcraft deals with words. It's all about words. All that other stuff, it serves its purpose, but at the core of it, it's the words. That's why it's called a spell. A spell. That's why we say spelling. When you spell something, you are breaking down the code, the mystery surrounding the word. We'll use a simple one. Denomination. The first thing that just came to my mind. Denomination. Some people don't know how to spell denomination. Or words like psychiatric. Does the Y come before the S or the H? You know what I'm saying? Is it the PS, PSC, PSY? You know. So you have to decipher that spell. The spelling of the words. Because if you don't understand the words, then you don't understand the meaning of the words, which means you don't understand the sentence, which means that you don't understand the context of what's being said. And if you don't understand none of that, then you don't know what they're speaking over you. How deep you want to go, as y'all hear me say all the time. How deep do you want to go? That's not necessarily do, spelling, spell, words, words or spells. They can be spells. If you don't have the ability to decipher what the word means, how to spell the words, all these different things. They can be a spell in that sense. Cast a spell. What does that mean? It means you're casting words upon somebody that they don't have no understanding of what you're doing, because they don't have the power to overcome the words that you are casting upon them in the form of a spell. So when you go to a spelling bee, a bee has a stinger. The stinger pierces. Are you understanding? So you take that stinger and you pierce that word. The spelling bee champion was able to pierce the words by what? By spelling them. Can I have it? Can you use it in a sentence? I used to be a spelling bee champion myself back in the day. Not as good today as I was back then, but hey, it is what it is. Where I lack in that area, I make up in understanding. I'm not always good at spelling words off the top of my head. I'm not always good at pronouncing words. But where I lack there, I make up in knowledge and wisdom and understanding. So we continue on, and it reads, don't say you wouldn't allow yourself to be injected with the devil, yet you allow yourself to be injected by devils. Like, what do you think a devil is going to do? What they've done is they found a way to bypass entering into the body through sexual intercourse. Because, devils, they love sex. They love sex. If you have studied demonology and the different demons, you're always going to see something about sex. If you have ever studied Holly Weird, it's always something dealing with sex. I wonder why. because the sex is about the two becoming one. And we discussed that in the previous sermon or previous post, I can't remember, before, about what sex at its core is really about. The whole purpose is to try and take over the body. What do viruses do? They replicate themselves within the host cells. What do unclean spirits do? They bring worse spirits than themselves, and the person is worse than they were before. They are, in essence, replicating themselves within the host body, ultimately so they can take it over. So we're going to go to the scriptures, and we're going to go to, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 18. For behold, I have made thee this day a defense city and an iron pillar, and brazen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. Now, when we look at the word defensed, it means fortification, fortress, fortified city, stronghold. So God, those of us who are in righteousness, in the righteousness of God, which is Christ and his gospel, he has made us defense cities. Defense cities. So we have our own defense. Our own defense. So if we have the defense of God around us, the book of Psalms talk about that angels are round about, they campeth round about us, right? What does it look like letting the enemy take a needle to inject something in us that shouldn't be injected within us in the first place? It's like, hey, I got this, this medicine right here. Paul, we know. Peter, we know. Jesus, we know. We don't know you. Then the ruler of the city comes forth and say, let him in. And then, no, don't let him in. This is the enemy. Let him in, meaning let him in. The Bible talks about watchmen on the wall. The watchman's job is to see things before they happen. See things before they get close. Identify and discern who is who and what's going on, so you can relay the message to the other military forces, the other people, the commander, and all these people that need to be informed about what's going on. So if that's the case, then what's it look like? Person has a needle and they want to inject this needle in you, but the watchman's job is to see them before they come. And then the watchman isn't doing your job, and then lets these people do these things under the guise of, oh, these people are sent by God. These are physicians sent by, doctors sent by God. Does God send physicians? Yes. Does God send what we call doctors? Yes, he sends actually both of them. But a doctor that is sent by God to do righteousness isn't going to lead you to do these things that are contrary to what God is saying. That's foolishness. So we want to go to Jeremiah chapter 4, and we are going to go to verse number 5. Declare ye Judah, and publish in Jerusalem, and say, blow ye the trumpet in the land, cry, gather together, and say, assemble yourselves and let us go into the defense cities. Our body is the temple of God. So the temple is the sacred place. Some of you know about Atlantis. And for those who don't know about Atlantis, let me just give you a little bit of an understanding on this. At the center of Atlantis, you had the religious center. At the center of Atlantis was the religious center, where all the important decisions were made. And then you had everything else toward the outside of the, it was like a circle, right? Toward the outside of it, you had the markets and stuff like that, the trade and the commerce and everything. You had your military and everything. You had your navy, because there was water surrounding it. You had your naval ships, going in and out. Your ships coming in and out for commerce, commerce and trade. Then the materials were taken off of the ships, and then they were brought to the markets, and it was like a big old circle. But what I really want you to understand is at the center of Atlantis, and Lord willing, I'm going to do a video showing you where Atlantis really is. I'm going to go ahead and give it to you. It's in Africa. It's not Bermuda. It was in Africa. And there's let me go ahead and plug this. There's a lot of talk about Atlantis, obviously, throughout the years and everything. But Atlantis, as people talk about it, Atlantis was back when Satan was ruling the world as Lucifer. See, a lot of people don't know that Satan used to literally rule the world physically. Physically, that's why the earth was destroyed the first time. That's why you had the universal flood. That's the first time that we know about that the earth was destroyed through a universal flood. It also flooded the other planets. All the other planets are flooded too. Now, you may say, well, how are they flooded when, most of these planets are dry? Well, you have to understand science a little bit better. How can it be raining in one place, but then it'd be dry somewhere else? Think about that. So space is water because there was a universal flood that affected all these planets. And so when they were flooded out, and then the floods subsided and everything, and then with the atmosphere of these different planets and stuff, it wasn't the same as what it used to be. And so now you have places like Mars where it's dry and everything, but they say they found signs of water being there. On pretty much every planet, they say they found signs of water, or there is water there. I'm just saying. Just give you a little something to think about. So he says, assemble yourselves and let us go into the defense cities. So we're supposed to be in our defense cities, protected by the walls of our defense city, protected by the walls of God. So if we are the temple, our bodies are the temple of God, then why would you allow a virus to be injected into your temple, the Holy of Holies? Why would you let something foreign? Even in the Old Testament, nothing foreign could enter into the temple, the Holy of Holies, or it would be burnt up. Even Israelites, there was order, there was structure to things. Like, nah, bro, you don't have the authority to come in here. If you go in here, you're gonna be blasted. Even with Atlantis, at the center of Atlantis, as I was saying, was the religious center, the temple of worship. And it was protected by the military, protected by everything else. Just no anybody could go in there. So why would you allow these people to inject something in you that's going to go into something that's holy, into your cells? Cells deal with if you go look at the root of cells, we discussed this before. Let me slow down. The root of it is monastery. A monastery is a religious place of solitude. It's a religious place. That's the basis of cells. Well, that makes sense because our cells are within us and they are in solitude, not supposed to be disturbed, doing their own thing. Outside body and everything is supposed to protect them. If something does get by, then you have your T cells and all these different things that protect the cells that are being attacked, that are delivering the nutrients and stuff like that to the rest of the body. So I ask you again, why would you want to allow yourself to be injected into your cells? Because that's what the virus is going to go into. They're going into your cells. They're attacking the cells, your temple, your body, the Holy of Holies. So the deeper question we should ask ourselves is, where is the defense? Where are the defense walls? Where are the watchmen on the wall in your city? Where are the watchmen on the wall sounding the alarm in your own city? How are these people just walking into your temple and doing abominations on your altar? Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 14. I just want to give you a different, a different and a unique perspective. Because everybody can get the same perspective, and that's cool. But y'all know I like to put things in a way that, makes you think like, man, that makes sense. That sounds crazy, but when you think about it, yeah, why would you do that? Jeremiah chapter 8, and we're going to go to verse 14. Why do we sit still? Assemble yourselves, and let us enter into the defenced cities, and let us be silent there. Enter into the defenced cities, and let us be silent there. Let's go over here and be quiet. Let's go where we safe at. Cells, monastery. They want to inject something within you in your temple. Your temple, unless you don't believe the Bible. So that right there alone, that shuts everything down. Your body is the temple of God. Would God allow something like this to be to enter into his temple? Even think about this. When the high priest went into the Holy of Holies, when he got ready to do this thing, right? They tied a rope around him and everything, and they had bells and stuff on it. So if he died, they could pull him out without even going in there, because they weren't even allowed to enter into there. They tied a rope around him, and there was bells, so they could know, if he was moving around, if he was alive. Obviously, if the bell stopped moving for a extended period of time, then they know that, hey, he dead. Pull him out. Pull him out by the rope, because they could not enter into there, or they would receive the same judgment. But you're telling me it's okay to do this. And you profess to believe the Bible. That's one thing. You don't believe the Bible. That's cool. You go do your own thing. But I'm addressing those who say they believe the Bible. I'm addressing those who just may be looking for answers. Let me see what this guy's talking about. Okay. I don't agree with what he's saying in regards to Christ and all the other stuff, but right here, I can get jiggy with that. So, do we read all of it? Yeah. No, we didn't. Why do we sit still? Assemble yourselves and let us enter into the defenced city, and let us be silent there. For the Lord our God hath put us to silence and given us water of guile to drink because we have sinned against the Lord. So because they had sinned against the Lord, they were dealing with all these different things. So when he was saying, let us enter into the defense cities and let us be silent there, he was saying, let us come to repentance and put our trust back in the Lord. Because the Lord is our protection. The Lord puts the mighty angels around us to protect us. As with Job. Oh, Job only worship you because you have a hedge of protection around him. You put this hedge around him. If you remove this and take that, he'll curse you. So the enemy could not enter in because there was that hedge of protection around there. Now, obviously, Job was being tested for a greater purpose. But we're not supposed to be sitting here, removing or hindering God from doing his job by saying we're going to take these vaccines in our body, in our temple, so it can do what they claim it does. Now, I figured this out as I was doing this study, but I wanted to make sure that I researched it to confirm what the Spirit was leading me to. So the first line, now this is interesting. It's simple, but it's very interesting. The first line of defense is your innate immune system. Level 1 of this system consists of physical barriers like your skin. Your first line of defense against viruses, bacteria, diseases, COVID-19, all these different things is your skin.
The immune system's first defense is our skin, the largest organ of our body. The skin covers a total area of about 2 square meters, the size of a typical basketball backboard. When microbes attack, they're routinely deflected by the skin. Inside our bodies, mucous membranes are slimy, warm surfaces that make up about 400 square meters, roughly the size of an entire basketball court. They're under constant attack from microbes in the air we breathe and the food we eat. They line our nose, throat, intestines, and reproductive tracts. That's a large area to defend. Your mucous membranes are going to need help. Fortunately, certain cells in your body have evolved to fend off microscopic attackers. Early responders, like this macrophage, identify invaders and attack. They also give off chemical signals, called cytokines, to call up reinforcements like neutrophils and natural killer cells. Macrophages, neutrophils, and natural killer cells, collectively referred to as innate immunity, are nonspecific, often sacrificing healthy tissue to contain an infection. But if the invader slips through, you're going to need a more targeted defense.
What do they do with a needle? Oh, they inject it in your skin, your first line of defense. Level 1 of this system consists of physical barriers like your skin and the mucosal lining in your respiratory tract. Tears, sweat, saliva, and mucus produced by the skin and mucosal lining are part of that physical barrier. Now, when we look at the word innate, it means existing from birth, inborn, native, natural. So your first line of defense, your first natural line of defense is your skin. Is your skin. And you're telling me that, yeah, take a needle and inject something in your skin, bypassing your first line of defense. Because it's a process, because something it have to go through the skin first, and it has to go through the hair. Y'all know, I'm hairy and everything. So that's even a layer of protection. Everybody has hair on their body, even if it's light or faint. So we got to go past that first. Your hair is connected to your nerves. So if something is on your hair, then it's going to register in your nerves. It's going to send a signal to your nerves like, hey, something's going on. Hey, go check it out. Go send the scouts. So the scout's going to come and see what's going on. Hey, this is a virus. You're trying to get in. Oh, he's trying to penetrate through the skin. Now, viruses, they can get in different ways. Some viruses, they actually come forth from us. Most of your viruses come forth from mankind. I'm not going to teach you that. But, you may take something in your mouth. You may put your finger in your mouth. They got something on it. There's many type of ways or whatever. But we're being generic so we can understand. We can get to the specifics later, or you can get to the specifics in your own time. So then it bypasses, it gets there, and then there's a process. Because it has to dig, and go through this layer, and that layer, and this layer, and that layer, this layer, that layer, whatever. So it gives your body time to respond to what's going on and what to do. Because your body is going to send the signals back to your brain, letting your brain know what's going on, so your brain can send the signal to everybody else in regards to what to do. Or could you take these resources and move them over here, because this is what they're going to do. Your body already knows what to do. Like, this whole thing, oh, I'm sick, and nobody wants to be sick. But the thing that you're actually going through while you're sick is supposed to happen. You're supposed to be coughing. You're supposed to have, the mucus buildup. The mucus buildup is actually a protective barrier, because that mucus traps the different things, other viruses and bacteria or whatnot, so that it can be expelled. Whoever plays sports, you ever play sports? Obviously, most of us have played sports. I never played sports. Have you ever been involved in anything competitive? During the competition gets heated. Things happen until the winner stands victorious. When you have a virus or a bacteria or whatever, it's something that makes you sick, there's a battle going on. There's a competition going on until you have zeros on the clock and one remains victorious. If you overcome the common cold, flu, influenza, COVID-19, any of these things, then that battle, you've overcome that. You have stood and you stand victorious at the end of the fourth quarter. So this is what's going on in our body. When we're sick, your body obviously is fighting off these different things. So it's not going to always feel good. When the Lakers were playing the Heat, Jimmy Butler was tired. He was tired, but he kept on playing. The other players were tired because they understood what was at stake. They understood what was at stake. And obviously the best team came out on top, which was the Lakers this year. Both teams were tired. Both teams were putting up buckets. The series, it was a best of 7 series, but obviously the Lakers didn't go to 7 games. They won the battles that allowed them to win the war. So are we understanding? So when we look at the word mucus, it says it is a protective secretion of the mucous membranes in the gut. It lubricates the passage of food and protects the epithelial. Oh, good Lord. Epithelial. I told y'all I ain't always good at pronouncing words, so y'all give me some grace. Epithelial cells in the nose and throat and lungs. It can make it difficult for bacteria to penetrate the body through the epithelium. So this is why I don't agree with Dr. Sebi. Dr. Sebi said that mucus is bad. No, mucus is not bad. Mucus in excess is bad. But if a person is producing excess mucus, then their body is producing it for a specific reason. Why? Because the mucus is a protective secretion of the mucous membranes in the nose and throat and lungs. It can make it difficult for bacteria to penetrate the body. So your body brings forth this excess mucus because you're already sick, and is bringing forth this excess mucus to protect you. So Dr. Sebi is talking about remove the mucus. No, it's not to remove the mucus. It's to find out why the body is producing this excess mucus. The mucus isn't the problem. The mucus is letting you know that something is going on. Just like if you take the mucus, you spit the mucus out your nose, whatever, you spit it out, you spit it out, but y'all know what I'm saying. Or you spit it out, or you blow it out, whatever. If you look at that mucus, depending on its color, it can tell you a lot of things about what's going on in your body. Things that you can't see. Now, faith is the substance of things not seen. But yet everything that's not seen is eventually manifested. You see what I'm saying? So, Dr. Sebi talked about the mucus and stuff like that, as I was saying. That is, it's bad. Need to remove the mucus. No, the mucus is letting you know what's going on. Need to find out why you're having this excess, why is your body producing this excess mucus? Because you don't want that excess mucus. You're going to have mucus anyway. Mucus is part of your body to do a specific job. But that excess production of mucus is letting you know something. When you get sick, when you get a cold, when you get a flu, what happens? Your body produces excess mucus. You get a snotty nose and you get it in the throat and everything. I got it in my throat now. Why? Because I'm sick. It has produced the excess mucus to protect me, to catch the bacteria or the virus or whatever it is that's in me, warring against my body. There's a competition going on right now. Who's gonna win? I'm gonna win. I've already won. I've already won on Calvary's cross. So, people exalt Dr. Sebi, but then it's like, yeah, he had wisdom and stuff, but then, like, dude, like, mucus is bad. Mucus is bad. Mucus is bad. No, mucus isn't bad. The whatever is wrong with that person while they are sick, that is causing their body to produce that excess mucus, that's bad. And majority of the time it's eating unhealthy. So yeah, you can go take all these herbs and stuff to remove the mucus. But if you don't address the root of the problem, then what good have you done? So mucus also has a root. The root of mucus is slime. Slime is defined as a sticky substance, something that stays, something that adheres to, something slips into or disappears, rub out, erase. So that's the purpose of the mucus in your body. So that the bacteria that you don't want in your body, the viruses that you don't want in your body, and what we call the free radicals that you don't want in your body to stick to the mucus, and for the mucus to be passed out, rather than blowing your nose. Some of us, we hawk it up and everything, and then, you swallow it. Some people, oh my God, are you nasty or whatever. So I just want you to, understand that. Either way, it's going to get out. It's going to get out. The body's going to remove it. Rather it's sweating, it can come out. It could be in your mucus, and then your body moves it in the form of sweat, and then when you get in the shower and everything, your pores open up and it removes it that way. There are many ways your body can do it. So I want to go to Matthew chapter 10, and we're going to start in verse number 1. Matthew chapter 10, we're going to start in verse number 1. And when he had called unto them his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. So Jesus has given us power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Now, sometimes we get sick and we pray to be healed right then, and God doesn't do it. And there's a reason for that. God has his own reason why he may not heal us right then. Sometimes we're praying and, we'll be healed right then. I've done that before. I've prayed over myself, and Lord, if you heal me, I'll go on Facebook. This was, when I was younger, younger in the faith. Lord, if you heal me, then I go on Facebook and I tell everybody what happened. I think my ankle was sprained or something like that. It was sprained bad, and I could barely walk. And now, I said that, and I laid hands on myself, and as God is my witness, the pain went away. I was like, oh my God. Like I was shocked myself. And then I went on Facebook and I told everybody that what had happened or whatever. Sometimes God allows us to go through the process of being sick and going through the things that we go through when we are sick to prepare us for greater trials and tribulations in the spiritual realm. Because nobody wants to be sick. Nobody wants their nose running. Nobody wants to feel like that. So sickness in itself is a trial and tribulation. The Apostle Paul went through different things, different trials and tribulations for the sake of what? The gospel. So God, a lot of times, he will allow us to be sick and go through the process of being sick instead of just healing us immediately, because there's some lessons to be learned in that. How you going to act when you're sick? You still going to praise me when you're sick? You still going to worship me when you're sick? You see what I'm saying? Some people, when they get sick, they forget God. Only thing they remember about God is, Lord, heal me. Lord, heal me. And then the Lord heals them, then they go back to doing wicked. So there's different reasons why God does things the way he does things in regards to the sickness. I'm pretty sure all of you can probably relate to what I'm saying. So since he has given us power against unclean spirits and all manner of disease, and one thing that I must add with this is the power he has given to us in regards to all manner of sickness and disease is that no matter what we're going through, we still have the joy of Christ. We're not going to let it bring us down. We're not going to let it affect us and stop us from doing what God has called us to do. Obviously, if you're sick, you're bedridden, you can't do too much, but you can still praise the Lord. You can still represent Christ. You can still be joyful in what you're going through, So if the people that are professing to have this power, if they truly have the power, then why is it that they have to get a vaccine to heal themselves from the coronavirus? I don't need a vaccine to heal me from the coronavirus. My God is more powerful than any vaccine. He has healed me many, many times. I've had walking pneumonia 2 times in my life. But they're telling you need to get a vaccine. Our vaccines are more powerful than God. They want to get the vaccine because they ultimately want to live forever, live longer. They don't want to die. They don't want to die because they want to continue to do their sins. They don't want to die so they can continue to do the will of the Lord. They don't want to die so they can continue to sin. So they go forth and they get these things like these vaccines and all this other stuff. So we go to Matthew chapter 12, verse 45. And it tells us, then goeth he. Oh, let's go back. Go to verse 43. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and findeth none. Then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. What do most people, when most people get a house, what do? They put up a fence. A fence is a barrier, is a protection. It's just, even if it's not really, you got a white picket fence, the fence still symbolizes something. Right? So the unclean spirit was in this house, which means that he was in this house. He was chilling on the couch. He was eating up the food. He was playing with the kids. He was sleeping with the spouse. He was doing all this stuff. He was behind the fence. He was going out to check the mail. What you got for me, boss? You got my check? No, I ain't got it today. It should be here tomorrow. All right, be on the lookout. I'll wait for you. Cool. This is what the unclean spirit is doing. He at the door, with the door open. It's raining. He just sitting there enjoying the rain. Then somebody legit walks by. I see you. He looking crazy. You looking crazy. What's wrong with him? Or her? Not realizing this person that's standing in the doorway is possessed with unclean spirits. Because the spirits, unclean spirits, they are in this house. Now, there are many reasons and many ways where an unclean spirit can go out for whatever reason. That's why you have to be careful when you are casting out devils from somebody. Because you can cast out devils from somebody, but then if they're not sincere, their second state is going to be worse than their first state. They end up like this because they aren't sincere. You did your job, but then, they weren't truly sincere in their belief of Christ. So now, because you have the power, these devils are gone. So guess what they do? They come back because they want a place that's warm. It's dry here in the spiritual world for them. They want to be in that water. They want to feel that warmth, that heat. So now they coming back, right? That's what it tells us. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and findeth none. He wants rest. So outside of the body for the unclean spirits is torment. So they get a form of rest within the body, which the Bible is telling us this body is the house, his house. Then he saith, I will return into my house from whence I came out. So he was already here and he went out for, whatever reasons. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. So it's cleaned up. It has an outward appearance, an inward appearance of righteousness. But there's nobody in there. There's nobody living there. There's nobody protecting the house. There's no strong man. This is self-righteousness. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. And they enter in and dwell there. They dwell there, they live there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first state. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. So he said, let me plug this. If you got one unclean spirit, and that unclean spirit brings 7 more, right? 7 others, that's 8 unclean spirits. Not, what I'm saying, he is one unclean spirit, and then he brings 1 more. He bringing 7 more. So that person is literally 7 times worse than what they were when they only had 1 unclean spirit dwelling there. And he said this, it was going to be like this during this wicked generation, during his time period and also the time period that we are living in. So how many unclean spirits do the people today have in them? 7 times 70? 7 times 100? 7 times 700? Remember, the Bible tells us that the sign of the last days are the amount of false prophets. Devils give false prophecies, false teachings that lead people away from Christ by dwelling in these temples and speaking through the people that they are in. So now you see why people are so, willing to take these vaccines in. It's not about the vaccine. Not for real, for real. These people, most of these people already have devils in them, and they want you to do what they're doing. Walk in the spirit with me, not in the flesh, and you will see these things. The devils that are indwelling most of these people, they want to be more and more empowered, and they want others to get vaccinated. Because the more power they have by a person giving over their rights, their bodily rights, more and more, it gives the demons and devils that are in them more power over the host body. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. So I want us to check something out. This is the Hippocratic Oath, the classical version. So this is what they used to say when they were sworn in as physicians / doctors. I swear by Apollo, physician, and Asclepius, and Hygieia and Panacea, and all the gods and goddesses, making them my witnesses, that I will fulfill according to my ability and judgment this oath and this covenant. So they used to openly swear to these gods. Now they don't openly do it today, but when you study these different things, you see the medical symbol, which is the rod or the staff of Asclepius. They're not doing it openly, but they're still doing it.
This is the first point. The second point is the oath is not really an oath. You see here in the first, this was the wrong direction, I think. You see in the first line the Greek word omnio, I swear, and you see here the English translation, that somebody is swearing by the gods, by Apollo the physician, and by Asclepius, the famous god of healing and medicine, and by some other gods, and in the end by all the gods as well as goddesses, making them judges to what the swearing guy is doing, to bring the following oath and written covenant to fulfill. This is the decisive term, covenant, in Greek, syngraphe. That means the oath is a kind of document of traineeship. It is a kind of indenture. So that means a physician, a young physician, is promising to keep a number of rules, to fulfill a number of obligations, and to realize a kind of attitude in his life, in his private life and in his professional life. So we have the oath as an expression, but principally it is, as we know from the rest of the text, a kind of contract document, traineeship document. I don't present you the whole text. We have 9 paragraphs of the text, 9 paragraphs which have been constructed by the philologists. Most of the 9 paragraphs deal with obligations and professional rules. For example, to keep all the information about the patient secret, to respect the privacy of the patients, only to try to heal and not to do any harm to the patients. So everything is still discussed until today of this text.
So we're not going to read the whole thing, but we just want to key in on some key points. If we go down here, it says, I will apply my dietetic measures for the benefit of the sick according to my ability and judgment. I will keep them from harm and injustice. Are they doing that today? Are they keeping the people from harm, or are they purposely harming the people? Is there medical injustices going on? Absolutely. I will neither give a deadly drug to anybody who asks for it, nor will I make a suggestion to this effect. Similarly, I will not give to a woman an abortive remedy. In purity and holiness, I will guard my life and my art. So they call medicine, being a doctor, being a physician, they call it an art, a science. Remember when we study technology, technology is the study of, and you go look at tech, it's an art, the study of knowledge, the study of wisdom. So he talks about that he is not going to have sexual relations with people in exchange for medical service. Obviously that was going on, and that's still going on today. And so you go to the Hippocratic Oath, the modern version, and you see what they did. I swear to fulfill to the best of my ability and judgment this covenant. What did they take out? They took out the name of the gods. But you still have to ask yourself, I swear to fulfill. Who you swearing to? You have to swear to somebody. You just can't swear in the open air. So if they are swearing to fulfill to the best of their ability and judgment this covenant, a covenant, you're binding yourself with something, right? Like we have the Old Testament covenant. We have the New Testament blood covenant of Christ. They're still both blood covenants. The Old Testament covenant was a blood covenant. A covenant is definitely stronger than a contract. But even a contract has power. So if they're standing in front of these other physicians and they are swearing to these physicians on behalf of the medical industry, then they're swearing to somebody. If they were swearing to God, which the Bible says to not do, then we would see the fruit of that. Even if they were swearing to God and they were in error on that, if they had sworn to God or made an oath with God, to God, their fruit would reflect their beliefs in God in the medical industry. But their fruit does not reflect that they have sworn or made an oath to our God that we know about in the scriptures. Their fruit shows that they have made an oath to the very gods that are based on the old Hippocratic Oath. So it pretty much says the same thing. I will remember that there is art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drugs. So according to their own oath that they take, they say that there is art to medicine. There is art to medicine as well as science, because science is involved in medicine. It is involved in the medical industry. So it talks about respecting the patient's privacy, all these different things. I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. But they're not preventing diseases. So again, they're still being hypocrites to the very oath that they have taken. They are not preventing diseases. They are spreading diseases purposely. If I do not violate this oath, may I enjoy life and art, respect it while I live, and remember with affection thereafter. May I always act so as to preserve the finest traditions of my calling, and may I long experience the joy of healing those who seek my help. So then they have another one that was the Physician's Oath, World Medical Association. And, you know, it pretty much said the same thing. They just added a few changes. It says right here, this oath was written as a direct response to the atrocities committed by the physicians in Nazi Germany. Well, what about the atrocities that are being committed today? What about the atrocities that have been committed and continue to be committed, excuse me, to black people around the world? What about the atrocities that are still being committed upon the elders? They are being taken advantage of. So like I said, we're not going to read all of it. They just have different oaths and everything. But what I do want to show you is something very interesting that some of you may know about in regards to this guy that the Hippocratic Oath is based upon. So Hippocrates, or however you pronounce his name, I don't really care. You can go look it up if you want to. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, you feel some type of way, and you can pronounce it the right way. So it says he was a Greek physician of the age of Paracelsus, which is classical Greece, who is considered one of the most outstanding figures in the history of medicine. He is often referred to as the father of medicine. He is often referred to as the father of medicine. What it should say, he is often referred to as the father of Western medicine. That's what it should say. So it tells us right here, Soranus said that Hippocrates learned medicine from his father and grandfather and studied other subjects with Democritus and Gorgias. What you're going to notice as we go on further into this video is that they're going to tell you what they want to tell you. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you. So if we go down here, it says Hippocrates is credited with being the first person to believe that diseases were caused naturally, not because of superstition and gods, which is not true. It's not true. As we just saw, the original oath was dedicated to the gods that they worship during this time period. So they're going to tell you what they want to tell you. And they're going to say that he's credited with being the first person to believe that that diseases were caused naturally, not because of superstition and gods. That's only half of a truth because of where he got his knowledge from. You can't separate this knowledge from the gods. Yes, diseases can be caused naturally, but diseases are spiritual in nature. And gods can strike you with diseases. So it goes on and says, he separated the discipline of medicine from religion, believing and arguing that disease was not a punishment inflicted by the gods, but rather the product of environmental factors, diet, and living habits. That's only half the truth because of where he got the knowledge from. Because of where he got the knowledge from. They tell you, oh, he got the knowledge from his father and his grandfather. But who did they get it from? So this is a PDF I downloaded. It's pretty interesting. I had to zoom in so you could read it. As you see, it says medical history. The oath of Imhotep in recognition of African contributions to Western medicine, written by Anthony Carl Pickett, MD, Washington, D.C. So the information that they leave out, and they leave out purposely, is that Hippocrates, he got his knowledge, his fathers and them all got their knowledge from the ancient Egyptians. Excuse me. They got their knowledge from the ancient Egyptians. They would travel to Africa and they would sit under these people and they would learn from them, and then they would take that knowledge back. Now, who is truly credited in history as the father of medicine is not Hippocrates, but it is who we know as Imhotep. And some of you may know where I'm going with this. But before I get to the point I want to get to, let's read what it says. A large body of primary knowledge supports the claim that Africans in antiquity made many significant contributions to Western medicine and were originators of medicine. Greek philosophers such as Pythagoras and Isocrates, historians such as Herodotus, and physicians such as Hippocrates and Galen write of this in their works. So they knew about this. In their own works, they wrote about this. They wrote about how the Africans had advanced knowledge in medicine and the understanding of the body and these different things. We see it on the writings of the walls of ancient Egypt. If you're on my Facebook page, my personal page, or the ministry page, Staying Focused for Jesus, you may remember the post I posted about with I forgot his name. Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. The guy with the erect penis. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And next to the picture is a picture of a sperm. Now, how did they know what sperm looked like way back then? Because you can only see what sperm actually looks like under a microscope and under the right microscope. So how do they have this knowledge about what a sperm is and what a sperm actually looks like? So this is, nothing groundbreaking. This is, then basic stuff, but some people may not know this. So again, Hippocrates, he wrote about this in his own works, that Africans have contributed significantly to Western medicine because the African people, both Shemites and Hamites, were the originators of medicine. So the Western medicine system is a perversion of the ancient Egyptian or ancient African medicine system, medical system. Current medical history texts do not adequately reflect the many contributions to modern medicine made by people of color throughout history. And it's not hard to figure out why. This oath was written neither to subvert tradition nor to devalue the impact that early, well-known figures had on Western medicine. So he made an oath that was based on Imhotep and what Imhotep represented. Now listen to what the author of this article says. It's, to me, it's pretty fascinating. Rather, it is written in the memory and recognition of the historical father of medicine. The modern day father of medicine is Hippocrates, but the historical father of medicine is Imhotep. Imhotep. It alludes to the early African concept of monotheism in contrast to what the Hippocratic Oath, which give praise to the Greek gods and goddesses of health, Apollo, Panacea, Asclepius, and Hygieia. The oath presented here stands as an alternative. So what he did was he said, you know what? If we're going to give credit where credit is due, which is giving credit to Imhotep, then we must give proper due credit, because Hippocrates, he worshiped the Egyptian gods, because the Greek gods are based off the Egyptian gods. So, but just to keep it in context, he worshiped the Greek gods of his day. And you had the Hippocratic Oath. He was with it, because if he wasn't, then, there wouldn't be all this evidence to support that he did support this. All you got to do is study the man out. I know some of you're not going to go that far or whatever. But this man worshiped the gods of his time period. So this person is saying, okay, Hippocrates and all these people of Greece, of Greek descent, they got their knowledge from the ancient Africans, who got their knowledge from who is known as historically the father of medicine, who is Imhotep. So we need an alternative to the Hippocratic Oath that gives praise to the Greek gods. And the alternative to that is the oath of Imhotep, who was a monotheistic believer. He didn't believe in many gods. He believed in one God, the one true God. Hint, hint, hint. And he is historically known as the father of medicine. Hint, hint, hint. Imhotep will be considered by today's standards to be the world's first multi-genius. He lived about 3000 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Zoser in the Third Dynasty. As a member of the Pharaoh's court, he was an engineer, architect, scribe, sage, priest, and physician. He is credited with building the step-ladder pyramid of Saqqara and the world's first hospital. So hospitals were supposed to be used for something good. It wasn't supposed to be used in the way that is used today. He also was responsible for instructing many Greeks on the philosophy and practice of the art of medicine, because medicine is actually supposed to help heal you, it's supposed to help the body along. In fact, let's go up here. Isocrates trace the teachings of Hippocrates back to Pythagoras. He claims that Pythagoras, after having studied in Egypt for 22 years, returned to Greece to impart his newly acquired medical knowledge to his contemporaries. Anthropologist Anta Diop contends that Egypt was a scientific and medical mecca where Mediterranean peoples went on a pilgrimage to drink at the fountain of scientific, religious, moral, and social knowledge, the most ancient such knowledge that mankind had acquired. And you can prove that. There are many journals and articles out there about explorers coming over to Africa and learning from these people. And this is during the time period where the Arab slave trade was going on. They were traveling over there during that time period. And you go read their accounts, they tell you how bad the Arab slave trade was and the things that they would do. And that's where the Gentiles got a lot of their knowledge from in regards to today's plantations and slavery and the transatlantic slave trade and all that. They got it from them. So the Edwin Smith papyri, probably written around 1500 BC, but based on works dating back to about 3000 BC, contains the earliest known information about surgery in use at the time. It describes clinical medicine, the use of experimental scientific observation, and many diagnostic and therapeutic modalities. It reports remarkably accurate observations on physiology, anatomy, and pathology. Breasted attributes its authorship to Imhotep. The papyri describes accurate anatomical clinical correlations, speaks of the use of cautery, hemostasis, tapes, sutures, and the beginnings of antisepsis with what? Copper salts. Didn't we just do a video where they're using copper salts to manipulate the DNA? So this is ancient knowledge. So we been knew about the DNA. We've been knew about different effects and stuff like that. Obviously, granted, as the Bible says that knowledge will be increased, there are certain things that they didn't know back then that we know now. Right? But you see, it's speaking about copper salts, and they were using copper salts way back then. And we just dropped the video about how they're using copper salts to manipulate the DNA. Osler stated that Imhotep was the first figure of a physician to stand out clearly from the midst of an antiquity. So out of everybody, that was the who's who, that was somebody, he stood out. Like, this is the man right here. He's the man, this the man. Now, what's the big mystery? Some of you already know. Now, people will deny it, but when you study it out, it's clear as day. Imhotep, which will be his Egyptian name, is who we know as Joseph.
Jehovah, he speaks to all mankind. Hearken unto his words, and it will guide you. For the prophet is sent from God. Oh, yes.
On an island just below the first cataract of the Nile, an ancient inscription written around the 4th century BC was found which claimed to be a copy of a document written by Pharaoh Djoser more than 1,000 years earlier. It is the story of a land grant made by the pharaoh to the priests of the god Num. It tells of 7 years of famine and 7 years of plenty, how Pharaoh had a dream and consulted his chancellor for help. It contains most elements of the 7 years of famine and 7 years of plenty story, although they were corrupted in this account written over 1,000 years after the event took place. But most importantly, the priests who wrote this inscription were relying upon the land grants made by this pharaoh to justify their claim to some land. They were not writing what they believed was an ancient myth. They obviously believed the land grants made by Pharaoh Djoser to still be valid and of enough authority to still be in effect well over 1,000 years later. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh. Ancient Egyptian records list Djoser as the 16th Pharaoh of Egypt, and historians have classified him with the so-called Third Dynasty. His chancellor, named Imhotep, was first known through the writings of the Egyptian historian Manetho, who in the 3rd century BC wrote, "During Djoser's reign there lived a man named Imhotep who had the reputation of the Greek god of medicine and who invented the art of building with hewn stone." The legends attributed to Imhotep were so incredible that he was considered to be mythical until this century, when excavations at Djoser's pyramid complex revealed the base of a statue with the name Djoser on it and the name Imhotep, with his long list of titles, one of which was chief under the king, a title which first appears with Imhotep and also was first bestowed upon Joseph. Imhotep was also the architect of Pharaoh Djoser's pyramid and surrounding complex, a veritable city within a city of incredible beauty and extremely advanced in design. Built on the plateau of Saqqara, adjacent to ancient Memphis, the pyramid within the complex is the first ever built in Egypt. Ron Wyatt spent a great deal of time here searching for evidence which might shed light on the biblical account. Such an event as the famine described in the story of Joseph and the distribution of grain to the other countries would have required a major facility and system of organization. When the famine came and Joseph's brothers came from Canaan to get grain from Egypt, we are told that they went to Joseph, which indicates that he personally oversaw the distribution, at least to those coming from foreign countries. And this would mean that there was certainly a central location or granary to which the foreigners came. The complex at Saqqara contains 11 massive pits, which even the Egyptians are at a loss to explain. They are not tombs, for all tombs were underground and carefully sealed, while these were accessible from the surface. And they are extremely large. But most fascinating is the fact that they are all connected by chutes. Ron believes these were the grain storage pits of the 7-year famine. As grain was removed from one pit, grain from the other pits flowed through the chutes, making the grain always accessible from one location. These are within the wall of the step pyramid complex, which has only one entrance, and it opens to a long covered passageway with small cubicles on each side, each just the right size for a person to sit with perhaps a small table. The narrow, singular entrance would have allowed only a few people to enter at a time. There was no doubt in Ron's mind that this was the main center of grain distribution on a massive scale. As people arrived to get their grain, they lined up to enter the long corridor. Inside, they paid one of the cashiers in one of the cubicles for the grain. After payment was made, perhaps they were given a sack for grain which reflected the amount of their payment. Then they proceeded through the corridor straight to the area of the grain bins. Once there, they descended the stairway next to the storage bins, handed their sack to a worker who filled it with grain and returned it to them. Then they exited through a small door on the lower level, which led to the outside of the complex. When the pits were first excavated, bits of grain still remained in them. During the 7-year famine, Egypt gained great wealth and prominence among the nations through the selling of the grain. The Egyptians who lived in their cities along the Nile had little to do during the famine, since they had a 7-year supply of grain to rely on and were able to devote their time to the building projects of the Pharaoh, not as slaves, but as grateful subjects. The family of Jacob, who lived in the Delta, separate from the native population, prospered and grew, exempt from the 1/5 taxation levied on the native population. From the time Jacob's family came to Egypt until the birth of Moses, many pharaohs had come and gone, many ruling contemporaneously with others in different regions. But until now, all recognized the rights granted to the people of Israel to live in the land of Ramses. But that was about to change.
Joseph is Imhotep. Remember, Joseph served under these pharaohs. Imhotep is Joseph, and Joseph is credited as being the father of medicine. And what does it say right here? Let's go back. So it talks about this oath, right? It says this oath was written neither to subvert tradition nor to devalue the impact that early well-known figures had on Western medicine. Rather, it is written in the memory and recognition of the historical father of medicine, Imhotep. It alludes to the early African concept of monotheism in contrast to the Hippocratic Oath, which gives praise to the Greek gods and goddesses of health. Imhotep, Joseph, monotheistic, one God that's over all gods, the Holy One of Israel. So we had this ancient knowledge as Hebrews, and we passed it on to others. This is why you see all these different laws in the Old Testament in regards to cleanliness, in regards to eating, all these different things. But they're not going to tell you that. So if I'm going to follow anybody, the point I'm making with all this, if I'm going to follow anybody, why would I follow the Greek gods of these people? Why would I follow this guy? Why would I not follow my own people who was walking in righteousness? I'd rather follow Joseph, who we're looking at in history right here. We know that Joseph was a righteous man. So wouldn't it make more sense to follow what Joseph said? And Joseph would have followed God, the Holy One of Israel, instead of following these people who are telling you to get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Would Imhotep tell you to get a vaccine? You study him out, you'd be like, no, he would not have. They credit Imhotep, they credit Joseph as historically being the father of medicine. So who am I going to, what makes more sense for me to follow? Does it make more sense to me to follow J.R. Smith or LeBron James? J.R. Smith got 2 championship rings. He made it to the NBA. J.R. Smith is well, at least he was a solid player. Go back and look at some highlights of J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith used to ball. But who am I going to follow? LeBron James and J.R. Smith, they're both in the NBA. Am I going to follow J.R. Smith and him playing with LeBron and learning all these things from LeBron and then taking it and manipulating it or whatever? Or am I going to follow the original who is like, okay, this is what it's really about? Now, I can see if J.R. Smith was actually following in the ways of LeBron, but he's not. Obviously, you would rather follow LeBron James than J.R. Smith. Would you rather follow Michael Jordan or enter or Steve Kerr or Dennis Rodman? You go down the list. Obviously, you would rather follow Michael Jordan. Some of you probably saying Steve Kerr. Come on, man. Come on now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Steve Kerr was a solid player, but he was no Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan helped bring the best out in that man. Some of you watched The Last Dance. Yeah, Michael Jordan was crazy, but hey, he had his reasons. So, Imhotep is Joseph. Imhotep is Joseph. Some of you, when you study it out, you go do all type of research. Some people will say it ain't him. But if you're being led by the Spirit, it's not hard to see that Imhotep, who they call Imhotep, the historical father of medicine, is Joseph, who the medical system today is based off of. The medical system today is a perversion of the system of Imhotep, which is based off of the Bible, which is based off of the laws and statutes and commandments of God. Now that we are in the love of Christ, we're being led by the Spirit, because the Spirit is greater than Imhotep, because Imhotep got his knowledge, his wisdom, and understanding from the Spirit, from God himself. So we're learning how to maneuver through the system that we're in, because the system is based off of what God set forth, a perversion of it. So this is why I'm not going to get no vaccine. Why in the world would I get a vaccine? I think I will follow Joseph, who was a righteous man, which means that I'm going to follow God. I'm going to follow the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, what you do, that's you. But you've been warned. So with that being said, God bless each and every one of you in Jesus Christ's name. As always, stay focused for Jesus. And as you know, the truth is not debated, it is declared.